It's great to see you all here again. I think this is my 7th EdNet, and gosh, it looks like a great one already. I'm really excited about it. To start off, I'll tell you a little bit about who I am. Then I'm going to lead in with a story, show some industry stats, and then wrap up with the same story. As Nelson started to tell you, I am the CEO and Chief Kid of 360 Kid. My business has been in the interactive industry for 20 years. I am an educator of 12 years, teaching computer science to graduate students. What makes our organization unique is that we look for interesting ways to make education more entertaining. And we have a real great knack for it. We've worked with publishers large and small on the ed side, but we've also worked with numerous consumer companies. Currently, we're developing a number of games for Electronic Arts. We're developing a number of multiple learning products for Hasbro, as well as having for Leapfrog in the past. We're currently advising, as I mentioned yesterday, 4 different virtual worlds. 2 of them are learning worlds. We're building multiple iPad apps, and we just learned about 2 hours ago that our company is being written into an electronic learning aid patent for Disney. So, I'm going to start with my story. I've often given presentations in front of students many times, and while I haven't given this one, I've often heard of other professors doing it. Where maybe on the first day of the semester, a professor will come out and say, hey, I have a bucket here. We're going to do a little experiment, and I'm going to fill the bucket with rocks. And then the professor asks the class, is the bucket full? Why, the students respond, yes, of course it's full. Then the professor takes a bunch of pebbles, fills it up into the bucket. Asks the students again, is the bucket filled? Why, yes, now it's filled. Professor then takes a bunch of sand and fills up the cracks and crevices around the rocks and asks, is the bucket filled? Students say, yes, now it definitely is filled. The professor takes a pitcher of water and starts to pour it into the bucket. Once all the water is in there, he asks the students again, is the bucket filled? They respond, yes, most definitely the bucket is filled now. The professor says, what's the lesson of this story here? The students respond by saying, there's always room for more. The professor says, no, you need to know what the big rocks are to put in first. Because once they're in there, and all the other pebbles and sand and water are in there, it's pretty darn hard to move the big rocks. When I look at the issues and opportunities around the education industry currently, I see there's a lot of big rocks in place that need to be shifted around, that need to be moved. Some big rocks may become small rocks. Some small rocks may become sand. And so I say this not knowing there are many things that are current big rocks on the table. They are shifting. And we need it all to work within that bucket. So that's part of my story. I'll return to it in a moment. But when we got started, and we've had some conference calls offline with all the speakers today, I was challenged to give a 7-minute presentation. And I thought, okay, just to set up some of the trends and some of the data I'm seeing going on in the industry right now, and no, because I have a foot in education and a foot in consumer, I'm intrigued by some of the consumer data that maybe some of you might not hear quite so much here at this conference, but certainly has implications to education for all. I'm going to start what I'm going to call digital data smackdown. The idea was to give 16 points of data in 90 seconds or less, because I had a 7-minute presentation. If someone out there in the audience could time me and just yell, go, I'll see if I can do it. And 10 seconds before 90 seconds are up, if you can just yell out 10 seconds left. 10 seconds. All right. Thanks, Frank.
Go.
All righty. Kids consume almost 11 hours of media in 7.5 hours. 93% of teens are online. 16 million kids ages 11 and under are online. 62% of students have cell phones in the school but can't use them in class. 35% of 10 and 11-year-olds own a cell phone. The average age of kids that get their first cell phone is 9.7 years old. 97% of teens play games. 50% of them played games yesterday. 46% of kids and 21% of teens will use a virtual world next year. Currently, there are 300 virtual worlds globally. I follow 120 of them. Next year, there'll be at least 8 different tablet devices. The iPad currently has had over 12 million app downloads from a pool of over 11,000 apps. The iPhone and the iPod Touch have over 225,000 apps and over 5 billion downloads to date. The biggest space for iPhone apps in terms of education is in the preschool space, but if you look at this chart, there's a huge load of opportunity in middle school and high school. Thank you very much, Frank. 73% of teens use social network sites. In first quarter this year, for every book that Amazon sold, they sold 2 ebooks. And Moore's Law is alive and well, and there's still some time left, and chips from 15 years ago are a fraction of the cost of what they used to be, and they're driving all the technology we have today. Came pretty close. Those are my 16 points. I thought it might be helpful just to kind of run through some of those, and there's so many more, and I thought which ones are most important that are affecting product development and thinking about new technology in the classroom. And I come back to this. Here's our bucket. What rocks are we going to move around? What rocks are we hoping to put in place? Do we have the political will to make change? Can we tell the difference between a rock and sand? And that's my opening introduction. Thank you so much.